everyone, welcome to this explainer. Okay, so before the modern churches, mosques, and temples we see today even existed, humanity was already looking up at the stars, just wondering. Today, we're taking a huge journey back in time to explore ancient religions, the forgotten faiths of humanity. We're going to look at the powerful, honestly kind of mysterious forces our ancestors worshipped, and we'll uncover how these early forgotten faiths literally shaped the exact world we're living in right now. I want you to imagine, just for a second, stepping out of a cave maybe 10,000 years ago. You don't have science, you definitely don't have modern technology to protect you. The world out there is a terrifying, totally unpredictable place. So what did humanity worship before modern religion stepped in with the answers? Well, when a lightning bolt struck the ground or a sudden plague swept through a village, early humans genuinely believed that these powerful, invisible, and sometimes really terrifying beings were up there just controlling the entire universe. Chapter 1. The Dawn of Belief, the First Human Faiths. You really have to think of religion not just as a set of rules, but as humanity's very first great tool to explain an unknown, frightening universe. It was basically our ancestors' original science and their original philosophy, born out of a desperate need to just make sense of the absolute chaos around them. Okay, let's dive into this. There's a direct, undeniable link between human fear and early belief. Think about it. When early humans faced the raw, terrifying power of storms, or the pitch black of night, their response was nature and sun worship. The sun brought warmth, it brought vision, so naturally it became divine. When they suffered from disease and freezing cold, they turned to fire rituals. And to process the ultimate, scariest mystery of all, death, they performed intricate cave rituals and sought guidance from ancestor spirits. At its core, religion was a survival mechanism. And as humanity evolved, so did these belief systems. We're tracing an absolutely incredible evolutionary scale today. We're starting from those simple, secluded cave rituals of the earliest humans, expanding all the way into Mesopotamia with their massive ziggurats, traveling over to ancient India with the incredibly complex text of the Vedas, and going all the way to the epic, battle-driven mythology of the Norse Vikings in Northern Europe. It's just a massive, mind-blowing expansion of the human imagination. Moving on to Chapter 2, the Architects of Belief, Gods of Egypt and Mesopotamia. This era is a monumental shift in human history. Humans aren't just worshiping quietly in caves anymore. They're organizing. They're planning and building massive, awe-inspiring structures specifically designed to house these powerful sky and sun gods. Which brings us to a really fascinating question. Did the Egyptians actually believe the soul could live forever? The answer is a resounding yes. But man, it took a lot of work. The ancient Egyptians weren't just building the pyramids for fun or, as monuments for tourists to gawk at thousands of years later. They were desperate to control eternity. They poured massive amounts of wealth and human labor into securing a permanent place in the afterlife. To guarantee that immortality, they created a highly structured three-step system. First up, the physical body had to be perfectly preserved through mummification. Second, priests had to perform incredibly specific, sacred pyramid rituals. And third, the deceased had to actively navigate the treacherous underworld using a magical guide known as the Book of the Dead. And this brilliantly illustrates how it was essentially a highly intricate, high-stakes escape room for the soul. And overseeing this entire complex process were the heavy hitters of the Egyptian pantheon. You had Ra, the supreme god of the sun who brought light to the world. Then there's Anubis, the jackal-headed god who directly oversaw that crucial mummification process. And finally, Osiris, the ruler of the underworld, who ultimately judged the souls of the dead. Literally every single aspect of their quest for eternal life was heavily governed by these specific deities. Now, let's move over to another cradle of civilization and look at the mystery of Mesopotamia. There's a really intriguing theory here. In Mesopotamian belief, their sky gods were absolutely paramount. Some theories surrounding their ancient texts even claim that the people believed these gods physically descended from the heavens, literally coming down to interact with humanity and share their advanced knowledge. So why does all this matter to us right now? Well, because Mesopotamian innovations fundamentally shaped our modern world. They worshiped these powerful sky gods, which led to the creation of elite classes of temple priests. These priests then demanded the construction of towering ziggurats, these massive stepped temples reaching all the way up toward the heavens. And from the top of those ziggurats, they studied the stars, which gave birth to the absolute origins of modern astrology. The horoscopes people still read today, yeah, those trace their roots right back to the night skies of ancient Mesopotamia.
Chapter 3: The Oldest Living Religion, Hindu Traditions.
As we leave the deserts of the Middle East, we find a belief system that didn't just fade away or disappear into ruins. Instead, ancient Hindu traditions profoundly evolved. They offered a completely different, highly introspective approach to understanding the universe. Now, what's really interesting about this is the profound shift in human focus. Unlike the faiths we just looked at, which were obsessed with building giant external tombs to reach the gods, ancient Hindu sages focused on complex internal systems. They codified their immense wisdom in the sacred texts of the Vedas. They explored the cyclical nature of existence through rebirth and the cosmic law of karma. And to make sense of it all, they developed the deep, introspective practices of yoga and meditation.
These deeply introspective practices were directly connected to the divine triad of the Hindu pantheon. Right at the center of their cosmic understanding, you have Brahma the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and Shiva the destroyer. Together, they govern an eternal, endless cycle of creation, preservation, and destruction that perfectly mirrors that cycle of rebirth the ancient sages were studying so closely.
Chapter 4: The Myth Makers, Greek and Norse Mythologies. Okay, this is where things get truly dramatic. In Greece and Northern Europe, early humans didn't just create cosmic philosophical systems. They created incredibly rich, deeply character-driven, epic narratives. These gods had massive personalities, tragic flaws, and intense storylines. Just look at the extreme contrast in how these two cultures viewed the ultimate fate of their worlds. On one hand, we have the Greek ideal of Mount Olympus, this eternal realm of permanence, order, and immortal rulers sitting comfortably above humanity. But contrasted with that, we have the Norse Vikings. Their entire worldview was defined by Ragnarok, a terrifying, apocalyptic prophecy of destruction, chaos, and the ultimate inescapable death of the gods themselves. It's a perfect reflection of the harsh, unforgiving, and violent environment the Vikings lived in. And we can see this cultural difference reflected directly in their gods. Let's compare some of the most famous deities. Both cultures personified the terrifying power of thunder, but the Greeks had Zeus ruling from the sky, while the Norse had the immensely strong, hammer-wielding Thor. The Greeks had Poseidon commanding the vital seas, while the Norse prized Odin, a relentless god of wisdom and brutal war. And while the Greeks believed Hades ruled a permanent, structured underworld, the Norse pantheon was entirely defined by the fact that their gods were actively destined to die in the apocalyptic flames of Ragnarok.
Chapter 5: Lost Faiths and Modern Legacy.
Over thousands of years, time has been both kind and incredibly cruel to these ancient belief systems. Many faiths completely vanished. Today, we find destroyed temples buried deep in the sand, ancient prophecies that were proven wrong, and countless forgotten gods whose names just haven't been spoken aloud in millennia. But even though many ancient religions vanished, their symbols still survive. Even though the giant stone pyramids have crumbled and the ziggurats are nothing but ruins, the core concepts and the profound existential questions birthed by these ancient people are still very much alive today. So the crucial point is this: we are quite literally walking in the echoes of the ancients. The ancient Hindu sages gifted us the mainstream adoption of meditation and the massive global practice of yoga that millions of people do every single morning. The earliest humans worshiping the sun or sitting around a fire, they set the psychological stage for our everyday search for spirituality. From the very layout of modern religious buildings to the survival of ancient symbolism, these early thinkers fundamentally shaped the modern world. And it really all boils down to this singular truth. Humanity has always searched for one thing: the meaning of existence. That is the incredible evolutionary journey we've just tracked today. From shivering in a dark cave, terrified of a thunderstorm, to building towering monuments for the sun gods, all the way to closing our eyes and seeking inner peace. Which leaves us with one final fascinating question to ponder. Are we still searching for the exact same meaning today? I mean, sure, we might have traded stone temples for skyscrapers and we no longer fear the setting of the sun, but that core human desire to understand our place in the massive universe, that hasn't changed a bit. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the world around you, and I'll see you next time.